Hello everybody, Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the biggest kill team channel on YouTube, unless of course you are aware of any other YouTube channel literally on the planet. So cool, hi, what's up everybody? Today I want to answer the question, are we in an elite meta still? When the last balance patch drop-a-ronied on us, hot dropped in, some claimed that was it, elites were done. I didn't see what they were saying. I thought, this hasn't fixed any of the issues. This might have fixed the issues at the top end that the top tournament players were complaining about, but it changes literally nothing for me, a scrub. So, with that in mind, I want to go through and look at what stats we can that might tell us a little something about this before we inevitably get the next balance patch. Are we in an elite meta? Have the elves taken over and dominated? Or are we all about something else right now? Or sanctifiers? We're not talking about sanctifiers today, luckily. So, how are we figuring this out? First things first, we're going to take a look at a tier list. We're going to take a look at some statistics. And we're going to take a look at what people are running in some of the larger tournaments around the globe, if you will. Don't know why, if you will, I just needed a filler word there as my brain caught up with my mouth. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's shrinkify. Should we shrink? No, let's take me off the screen. Jesus Christ. You can only handle so much, right? Okay, so this is Kill Team 3 Battle Kit. You should, of course, all be using this. If you go on the left hand, the little burger menu, I think it's called, you can look at this tier list. This is done by the podcast, Kill Team Mercenarios. They're awesome. They're in Spanish, so I can't understand them, but there you go. If we look at the top tier, the S tier, keeping in mind this is up to date. It has the sanctifiers and the goremongers already up there. Okay, this is the most up-to-date tier list. They update it very regularly, and they are a group of very good players. Okay, so I generally put quite a lot of faith and weight in this tier list. They've obviously got Warp Coven wrong. Those should be much higher, but ignoring that stray that Warp Coven keeps on catching from me. What is the S tier, folks? Sanctifiers? Well, we expect that, right? Nemesis Claw, Angels of Death. Now, when everybody says that we are no longer in the elite meta, we are no longer in the marine meta, that's weird, right? Why would some of the best players with their podcast, and again, it's a group of players, it's not just one guy, right? So this is a discussed tier list where multiple people can go back and forth on the subject and convince each other. It's not just like, if it was me, it would just be totally random, you know? Depends how I feel on the day. Depends if I just lost a match to one of these teams, basically. How are Nemclaw and Angels of Death, two teams that nobody seems to be complaining about and apparently are no longer in the meta, S tier? Good question. So let's have a look at BCP. BCP, Best Coast Pairings, a questionable piece of kit at the best of times. So I want to just look at a few different tournaments that have occurred and discuss things. Oh, we need to very quickly talk about something. Sorry. So this matters for when it comes to representation. Hey, elite teams, we are counting those as 6 to 8 wound model teams. So goremongers are an elite team, to be clear, and APL 3. There you go. So it's not just marines. We are counting elves here. We would be counting goremongers because they're 8 teams. Obviously, the goremongers aren't going to currently affect these, but just keep in mind that's what we're discussing. I personally don't have much of an issue with the elf teams at the moment. I'm mainly thinking about marines, but anyway, just so you're aware. There are 10 elite teams in the game. There are 38 teams in total. So very roughly, elite teams make up 20... I don't know why I said very roughly, but 27.5%. So 28%, a bit under a third of the game. Okay? So, if the game is balanced, we would expect elite teams, roughly, to be taking up 3 of the top 10 spots. Okay? Keep that in mind. Also, note that we don't do a top 10 cut, we do a top 8 cut, which is going to skew things. So in a top 8, if all things being balanced, you would expect there to be 2 or 3. Oh, yeah, 2. You would expect there to be 2. 1's acceptable, 3 is kind of okay, I suppose, if you must. But 2 elite teams. So, this here is Spain. So, they recently had one of their big golden ticket events. I think it was a 71-person tournament, so really big. And I just want to count down the top 10. So, again, in the top 10, there should be 3 elite teams. Brood Brothers, Boboss, Angels of Death, Legionary, Nemesis Claw, Commandos, Warp Coven, Angels of Death, Nemesis Claw, Plague Marines. Now don't get me wrong, that's a really good spread of elite teams. But buddy, that is 8 elite teams. Again, statistically, it should be 2. Cool, that's fine. Keep that in mind, okay? Just keep that in mind. No big deal, no big deal. Just throwing out some numbers so we can all get an idea of what's going on. It should, of course, be noted, I suppose, for fairness, that actually number 1 wasn't an elite team. Interesting. Okay. Poland recently had a big tournament as well. So, if we just look at the top 10, I'm doing top 10s just because it's easy to say that there should be 3, okay? Instead of getting weird with the top 8 and it should be like 2.5, right? So, Inquisitorial Agents, Brood Brothers, Void Dancer Troop, Phobos Strike Team, Rattlings, Warp Coven, Commandos, Nemesis Claw, Legionary, Novitiates. So top 10, we would expect 3. That's 5 elites. Because yes, Void Dancers are elites. Again, I'm talking about elites, not just Marines. So, hey, that's a better number, right? That's only 50% of the board of the top tier being elites. Cool, good. I want to then look at the Knockout Open. This was run by a friend of the channel, Chris Backy. Acquaintance of the channel, Chris Backy. With his good friend, Sammy, actually winning with Vetguard. I haven't talked about this, and I don't know how I can make a video about this, but absolute ledge there. Like, coming first place. Sammy, in case you forget, was the guy that was caught up in a little bit of controversy, him and Chris Backy, for LVO. And I covered that and cleared everybody's name, I hope we can agree. Sammy was the Warp Coven player and he came first at LVO. And awesome, great. But he was playing Warp Coven, so like, doesn't even, are you even playing Kill Team? Seems a bit cringe. Doesn't even count as a win in my book. But to win with Vetguard? That's a win. That's a, what's this guy doing? He's making everybody else look bad. Because everybody has Vetguard on like the bottom tier. They are not doing well. And to go and win the game, facing like in a large tournament, 6 rounds, very hard to match dodge, very hard to opponent dodge in a 6 round, 40-person tournament. Really, yeah. Amazing. Anyway, I'll stop glazing Sammy now. Let's have a read, shall we? Vetguard, Felgor Ravagers, Hearthkin Salvagers, Warp Coven, Legionary, Corsair Voidsguard, Angels of Death, Plague Marines, Farstalker Kimban, Hand of the Archon. Okay, so you know what? That was only 4 out of 10. Again, that is more than it should be, but honestly, not too bad. Not too bad. I can't argue with that. So 4 out of 10 being elites. Again, it should be 3, but that's fine. It should technically be 2 or 3, but whatever. So at the moment, elites are in the S tier, and they are heavily overrepresented in some of those top tier tournaments, okay? If we then go to Kill Team Stats, just type in Kill Team Stats, Coffee, K-O-F-I, this thing here, all right? We get to this page, you go down to all reports, you can look at a bunch of different things. I want to show you a few of these things so that we can look at some numbers, because who doesn't love numbers, right? Right, these are up to date. This is up to date from yesterday. So we have all of the latest tournaments, all of the tournaments you just saw there. We start to see Sanctifiers coming down from an absolutely insane 91% down to a more reasonable 60%. It's all good, it's all good, it's all good. Warp Coven actually went up. Win rate? Whatever, let's not talk about it. Okay, So what are we looking here? Well, this here is a win rate. If I swap to games played, Angels of Death are at the absolute top with the most games played, then Nemesis Claw, then Plague Marines, then Wrecker Crew, then Phobos. So, you know, just from a representation perspective, even though if you just look at the number of teams, you should expect, all things being equal, there to be 30% are elite teams of the number of teams there. However, my man, people do not care. We just like elite teams. Angels of Death, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The top 5 are elite teams. Okay? And then we drop down. If you go top 7, you've got Legionary, Void Dancers in there. Yeah, people like to play elite teams. Doesn't matter how you look at it. People like to play elite teams. They are, although from a proportional perspective, 30% of players should be playing elite teams. All things are not equal, as we know. If we go down to, like, Reachers, they have, games played 50. They've only just become statistically acceptable, according to this, the way this thing does stats. Angels of Death, 1,137 games played. So, you know, a little bit different. A little bit different is all we're saying. How many did Gillipox actually have? 34. Oof, that is rough. Okay. Anyway, back to win percentage. So, Angels of Death are the most played team. They, elite teams are the most played teams. Where are they winning? So, I like to look at Angels of Death here because if we go back to games played, they're at the absolute top. They have games played 1,137 to Nemesis Claw 880. That's the second. Okay? So, they're like a third again. Oh, I didn't want that. Back to win rate. Where are they? How can I claim that we are in an elite marine meta when those AOD, the most popular faction, aren't even on this list? What do you think their win rate is? Let me show you. Oh, it keeps going. 43%. You know what that tells us? Despite Angels of Death being in the top tier, being played by some of the best players at all of these events, they need a buff. Or do they? So, I just thought that was interesting, and you need to keep in mind everything I'm saying with the fact that AOD, despite them being clearly a meta favourite, because they are played so much, because they are the starter box team, even though they are strong when you begin the game, they quickly hit this muddy middle where people know how to deal with them, and a lot of people just want to roll dice and never improve at the game, which, to be clear, is me. That's me. I don't want to improve at the game. I just want to roll dice. Angels of Death is the team that I will be dragging down in the stats, okay? So, despite them being an absolute fan favourite and an absolute top tier tournament favourite, the top tier tournaments players are minuscule. Not that it might be a vocal minority, but they are not the people playing this. And we can look at this with the other report from Kill Team Stats. So what we have here is, if we look at podium finishes, they've dropped off again. If we look at tournaments played, Angels of Death have the most tournaments played. That obviously makes sense because they are the most played team. Cool. Percentage of podium finishes is 17%. Oh wait, what's 1 of 38? Can I do that maths? Not really. So if this was proportionately aligned, what should they actually have? Oh, but it's different. Okay, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, so podium finishes is a good way to, compared to, so total podium finishes would be nice, but we can only see first, second, third. We can't see total. So if they are very good in the hand, if they are weak, then we see here they have a low win percentage, right? Where have they gone? I've lost them. They're down at the bottom. That's why I've lost them. So 43%, that is a really low win rate percentage. They need a buff. That is what 43% win rate tells us. Everything here, from Rattling, from Exaction Squad down, by pure win rate needs a buff, okay? When you go here, you can kind of take podium finishes as being good in the hands of good players, right? That is very roughly how we would take that stat. But we don't really care about the percentage. The percentage doesn't tell us much. What we care is about raw numbers. So Angels of Death, although they have 17%, if we look at first place count, who's going to be here? Plague Marines, Angels of Death, Legionary, Mandrakes, Nemclaw, Felgor, Phobos, Void Dancers, Skip, Warp Coven. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the top 10, 8 of them, wait, is that right? 8? Yes, that is correct. The top, no, sorry, 7. The top 7 first place teams are elites. Again, it should be 30. There should be 3 of them in there, right? And that's only first place. That's not counting second place. If we actually do look at second place, we look at what Nemclaw, AOD, Plague Marines. It's very similar, actually. Not much change there. And if we look at third place, AOD, Phobos, Wrecker, Felgor, Legionary, Plague Marines, Blooded, Nemclaw, Mandrakes, Commandos. Basically, first, second, third, it's still just a hell of a lot of elites up here. And so, the question of, are we in an elite meta? You can go and point to Angels of Death being a 43% win rate team. Statistically, if you play into Angels of Death, you should beat them. That's what that means. However, if you play into Angels of Death in a tournament, statistically, you should not beat them. That's what that means. Because Marines and elites in general are so dominating and strong, it doesn't matter the core nerfs that they have received, they are still absolutely dominating. Right. There you go. I just thought that was interesting. Are we in a Marine meta? Are we in an elite meta? Yes, we are. Cool. Statistically, if you go to a tournament, not only will you play against elites, you will lose against elites. Cool. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, do you want that changed? I don't know. You tell me. I don't play in tournaments.